All right, so good morning, everyone. We're just double checking to see if we have any attendees from the community. Today is Wednesday, April 20th, and this is a property committee meeting. Okay, it looks like we have one attendee. Good morning. And Mr. Thorne, I'll turn it over to you to start the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yannicone. Again, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Property Committee, Wednesday, April 20th, 2022. So we're going to follow our agenda that was posted online. We do have an associated PowerPoint presentation as well. And I know, Dr. Yannicone, can you pull that up? That would be wonderful. Okay, so
I'll be happy to.
Thank you. It's just a little bit of a visual aid for everybody. So our first item on the agenda is the capital projects. And we have 3 items underneath. There's wayfinding signage. Again, these are all summer capital projects that we discussed.
Mr. Thorne, I apologize for the interruption. Mr. Coughlin, would you mind just giving me screen sharing rights?
Will do, sorry.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So 3 items under capital projects are wayfinding signage. This is signage to get us around the district as well as inside the buildings, the middle school and high school specifically. We also have an update of middle school roof and the fencing project there at the middle school and our proposed security upgrades around the district. All right, is there any questions before we get started? Okay, so again, our first item there is the wayfinding. So if we can go to the slides there, yep. So this is just with the high school. I'm working with the high school team, and we'll be doing the middle school as well. These are just some suggestions you'll see for our wayfinding signage. How to locate the gym, the main office pool, as you see there. For the high school, we have the connected Erdenheim campus as well. So that's sign 1, front and back, sign 2, as you see there. So again, they're just suggestions you're seeing on the labeling. So these signs are going to be associated with the campus map. If you could scroll up, Dr. Yannicone. So as you see, sign 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this slide shows you the little blue triangles. So this is where we're proposing or thinking about putting these signs, these wayfinding signs. So, you know, sign 1 would be at Springfield Way and Paper Mill Road. 2, 3, as you see, working around the campus where we would put wayfinding signage. So everybody, as they come into our campuses, would know where to go and where to park. So that's what we're proposing at the present moment. So if you move up the slides, these are just examples of types of slides or signs, excuse me, that we're looking at. So we haven't picked the last ones, but we're looking at all these different types of signage that we could install. The more fancy, the nicer ones are obviously more expensive. But if the bottom slide there, if you look at the middle picture, if you notice all of those points that they're referencing there with the little arrows, that's what we're trying to figure out. How many different areas are we going to try and identify? The more you put on there, obviously the font gets smaller. We don't want to obviously stop traffic and have everybody sitting there looking at a million different selections of where to go. So there's some of the things we're working through. So if we could advance the next slide. These are interior signs that we want to put up as well. Again, these are just examples. The one on the far right is actually our high school teen room. So we want to put inside the middle school and high school as well, identification wayfinding signs. So if you're in the building, how do I find the gym? Where's the nurse's office? Where's the main office? Things of that nature. So we're also looking at that type of signage. So the next slide is our district branding flags.
Mr. Thorne, I just wanted to just take a moment to remind the members of the board We had spoken several years ago about branding and the importance of making the campuses welcoming and easily accessible to the community. So these items that Mr. Thorne has just reviewed are examples of those two areas, both the branding of the campuses and really making them welcoming and accessible, whether it's people from our community or visitors who are coming so they can find their way through.
Can I, Karen, can I just ask a quick question? When we're thinking about interior signage, are we looking at accessibility for visually impaired folks in terms of use of Braille or, you know, that on our signs? Is there any talk about that?
Yeah, we will be exploring those options, as well as Dr. Yannico brought up a good point about the AED devices in the buildings too. Do we list them on the signage as well? So yep.
Emergency locations, Dr. Taratuski, and I don't think you can necessarily see it in this picture, but the team meeting room, that room 116, which is inside our high school, there is Braille just below the words team meeting room. So all of our newer signage does include Braille, yes.
Okay, great, thanks.
Sure.
Okay. So the next slide is actually, Dr. Yannico polled all the administrators, got some feedback. We had maybe 5 or 6 examples of the Spartan flags, so the banners. And this was chosen, this was the favorite. So this is roughly 60 inches tall, 30 inches wide, and it would be mounted on the poles as you see here. Those pictures represent a single flag. Do we do double flags? And the type of bracketing we would have on it. Again, Dr. Yannicone was so kind as to go around the district and get an estimate of how many flags we actually will need. Do we do every pole, every other pole? Do we do all the parking lots? Do we do out front on the road? Things of that nature. So that's an example of the branding flag. And we're still working through how many and the locations where we'll install them. So that's the first item there under number 1, capital projects. Is there any questions so far?
Mr. Thorne, I just want to jump in there just to reiterate for the members of the board. This is, again, you may remember, we used to have, I don't know, 3 or 4 different kinds of banners, depending on the campuses. There's sort of a running joke that there's one that looks more military in nature around Erdenheim, and it either looks like a Spartan helmet or a penguin, depending on your perspective. And so many of those signs have been damaged over the years. And so what we want to do is have one banner uniform throughout the campuses across the district. So whether you're at Enfield, Erdenheim, the middle or the high school, the transportation garage, or the administration buildings, wherever we hang these banners, it's the same one. So it's clear that you're on this campus, as well as Church Road, so that people know that they're here in Springfield Township Schools. And I see a question in the chat. Thank you, Gretchen. Are there any questions about that? Comfortable with the banner?
No, thank you. No, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, so then the next item is the middle school roof project update. Is just the material has been on site. It was delivered. The roofing contractor was able to purchase actually roofing materials that have a real long lead time. So we've actually brought a lot of it in, stored it on the middle school site. So that roofing is moving along. And the next slide is the fencing project. The last board meeting, we did approve, the board did approve to replace this fence along the middle school, along Paper Mill Road. So the first, the top slide there is the existing fence. So vegetation growing through it. It has some holes there, as you see. So we want to replace that fence. And the next slide coming up there is what's in front of the high school now. So as you come down Paper Mill Road, as you go past the high school, you'll see the black fencing. As you go by the middle school now, you're going to see this similar black fencing, 6-foot high chain link fence. So all the campuses we're trying to match, make them look the same, they're Springfield. So that's the update there. If there's any questions there.
So that's just a reminder, we had reviewed at the last property committee meeting, the summer projects, and this fencing was on that list of summer projects. We just wanted you to see what it's going to look like when it's done.
Okay. So our next item is our security upgrades. So these slides, I just wanted to give a visual representation of what we're actually planning to do to upgrade security. So that slide you're looking at the door, that B6, those two devices up top, the little white cylinder is what's called a proximity device. Underneath of it is what they call a mag lock. And all the way down is the panic bar that opened the door. So Mr. Shinta was touring the district looking for, any safety issues, and he brought this to our attention. And I thank you, Steve, for that. If there was a bad guy outside that door and was pounding on the door and a curious student came over, they actually would activate the proximity device, which indeed releases the magnet and opens the door. So a person could just come in. So what we're proposing to do is remove those pieces of equipment. So the new equipment would be that panic bar, the bar you push to get out of the doors. That would have the mechanisms to release the latch and unlock the door. So we would be taking those two devices out. If someone were to come up and pull on the door and kids were near that, where the proximity device was, it wouldn't open. So that is the proposal. Again, this is on the capital projects for this summer. Those devices, they all talk to the next slide, the equipment in the next slide. So there's wires running from all the doors with the card access, and they go to these pieces of equipment. So along with the upgrades, these are some of the things that we'll be replacing. So I just wanted to give you guys a visual representation of what we're actually, what it entails to remove the devices off the door, but it also has to communicate to this equipment. So in that slide you see there on the right is one of our data racks. All that equipment talks to our main servers. So that equipment has to go through that rack, go to our servers, and that's where we have to upgrade that software, our seat licensing. So that's what that project entails. It's quite a bit of work. Mr. Shinta has been going around with contractors. He developed a scope of work, what needs to be done, and we're receiving quotes now for different parts of this project. So that just wanted to let everyone see what all that is about. When we talk about security upgrades, these are the types of things we're replacing and doing. Any questions with that?
Yeah, can I interrupt with a question, Mr. Funk?
Sure, absolutely.
I think you talked about this before, but I just want to double check and for everybody's benefit. The change in the proximity door equipment that will still allow in an emergency or anything like that, it'll still allow students to get out if they need to. If touch wood, it never happens, but if there's a fire or something like that, it won't trap anybody in, right?
No, it won't. No. The in that slide there, you see the panic bar on the door as you would exit any door. That will always be active from inside. Okay. So you would be able to exit. Absolutely. Yep. Even if all those components failed, you still would be able to get out of the building.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, so that's the fun projects we get to do in the districts. It's quite involved, as you see. And of course, that's a lot of that is very costly, unfortunately, but the upgrades I think are well needed, well intended. So
I just want to echo something that Mr. Thorne said. I want to compliment Mr. Chinta since his arrival in the district. It's always good, when you have somebody new who comes in, they have a fresh set of eyes to look at what we're doing. And I think he's done a great job doing a comprehensive safety analysis in the district. it's really going to result in some positive upgrades in our overall safety on the campuses by the end of the summer. This should all be done by the start of the new school year.
That is the plan. Yeah. All right. If there's no other questions, we'll go on to our next item on the agenda, which is our middle school athletic fields. So we're doing assessments now of the athletic areas, the usage, what impact we might have on current programs and future programs. So we'll be working with our construction management team, Dewey Engineers, to evaluate what we have. We have a list of all the programs, how many kids are enrolled. And this slide here you see is just a Google map of the middle school fields themselves. So these are the only fields that are currently on the middle school site. You see the baseball diamond, and basically the football field is inside the track area, closest to the building with the black roof. That's the roof we're replacing, by the way. Is our lowest field, a lower field there. Field hockey, lacrosse, different sports are played there. And up by Springfield Way in the entrance to 309, you'll see another soccer field that's been laid out, painted on the grass there, runs into the baseball diamond there in the corner. So what we're looking at, I guess this would be a 2023 project, is to replace the jogging track around the football field. It's currently a yard track, which means it's smaller than a PIAA regulation track. So we're looking to mill and overlay and put a rubberized surface on that. We also are going to look at if we could rearrange some of these fields. So can we move the football field? Can we move some of the other surfaces around to get more to put in a larger track, say, so it's PIAA approved. Each of those fields are at a different elevation. So the field closest to the building itself, the black roof, that is our lowest field. The football field with the track, that is roughly 4 to 5 feet higher than the lower field. And then up by the 309 entrance, that is probably 10 feet higher than those other two playing surfaces. So looking at this, it all looks flat, but it really isn't. So if we were to say extend that athletic track, that would involve a lot of earthwork, a lot of site work there. Underground stormwater drainage issues that we would have to address, things of that nature. So for the lower field, we're looking at raising up with topsoil, at least 6 to 10 inches of topsoil, and either sodding it or seeding it. That field's probably in the worst condition. When it rains, obviously it's the lowest field. It really puddles up, and it does, inhibit our athletes to get out there and play. It may rain on Monday, but the field won't be ready till Wednesday, Thursday, because the amount of water that lays there. So, we have some grading issues, need to add some topsoil. And again, it's, do we sod it? We do have capabilities to irrigate all those fields, all the grass fields. We could add bleachers, discus throwing, javelin, things of that nature. Couldn't we fit another baseball field in there? So, so we're going to look at all these items and come up with a plan for next summer. So that's currently the only fields at the middle school. Any questions to this point?
No, I have no questions. I'm just really glad that we're looking at. I just know that the lacrosse teams, just from my own experience, have always played on that lower field, and they have lost a lot of playing time over the years, practice time and playing time, because of the condition of those fields. So I'm really glad to hear that we're looking to do something. Yeah.
Very good.
Dr. Taratuski, I think we've perhaps spoken about this at previous meetings, but we recognize that In recent years, attention was on the high school campus, prior to that, Erdenheim's campus, and the new Enfield construction, and now Church Road. The middle school is clearly next. It's due for some upgrades. As a result of the enrollment study, we recognize that we are likely not to see a significant increase in enrollment. So we can use the existing footprint of the building and work on both cosmetic upgrades inside, as well as, and on the exterior, such as the roof, structural upgrades like the roof, that we can attend to these fields. And the overall appearance of the campus, such as the fencing along Paper Mill, which obviously is degraded over the years. So we intend over the next few years to put our attentions here. If the board has any particular requests as we're looking, as Mr. Thorne mentioned, we are going to have a company, the groups that usually consult with us, give us some advice on, should we leave it as a yard track? Should we rotate the track from the current, I'll say, horizontal configuration to a vertical configuration and relocate the fields, level them, and make it a meter track, which would allow it to host official meets? Because currently it's 5 laps to a mile, whereas in Spartan Stadium, it's a 4-lap meter track. It's a PIAA approved track. So, and then what can we do with the other fields? So it's not, right now, really, we have 3 multi-purpose fields there. You can see the one in the outfield of the baseball, the one adjacent to the building, and then the one inside the track. We don't want to lose any fields, but we want to see what kind of configurations might work. But we would like to know from the board, are you comfortable with us exploring any and all of those options and then bringing them back to you?
Yes.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that when we were doing, everything with Erdenheim and the high school, there were opportunities for us to present all of this to the public and for them to comment, et cetera. And, just seeing some of and hearing some of the comments as Enfield was going down and the new fields are going in there, I do feel like it's really important that we plan some sort of a opportunity for community input with that. I'm probably, I know that's probably built into your plan too, but just wanted to make sure that I made that request. So.
Thank you very much. Our plan is to gather the options and the relative costs for those options, and then we would involve the public at that point once we know what we can do.
Sure.
And if there's anything else, I'll mention it, though I know that the what this would open potentially, but we do not have lighting on any of these fields, as you know. So these are daytime fields only, much the same as the Church Road site are daytime fields only. And so we, if the board would like, we could certainly look into the potential for lighting on any of these fields. We haven't discussed that at this point, but I do know that always comes up because of availability for usage after the dinner hour.
Right. Okay.
Right, so again, the existing site doesn't have the softball fields at all. They were down where we built the new Enfield school. That's where middle school did use them. So it's just a slide of what we're building down at the Church Road site. So there's your 2 softball fields and a full-size multi-purpose field. So this is a great addition for the district as well as the community. So we'll be able to relieve some of the pressures on those fields. As you know, grass fields get really used, really beat up. So this new multi-purpose field here, this grass field on the Church Road site is a huge benefit to the district. So that's why we added that slide there, just to give everybody a visual. So that's actually our next agenda item, is the Church Road update. So project is going well. A couple slides there. It's the last part of the steel structure coming down, which is completely down now. And then they're leveling out the field surfaces, as you can see there. So the next phase is to be putting in all the stormwater piping, the inlets underground, and then they'll work on the actual field surfaces themselves. So it's going well. No issues. Still working with the township with some of their documentation, some of the agreements and everything. So Ms. Green has been working with the township manager, the solicitors. So we're getting all those ducks in a row as well. So any questions on Church Road?
We are hopeful, correct, Mr. Thorne, to have those agreements in front of the board on May 2nd or May 3rd.
Correct.
May 3rd.
Yes. All righty, so the next item on the agenda is the stadium lighting usage. So again, we spoke at the last property meeting, what we're doing there, how we're addressing the community concerns, some of our neighbors there. So we were looking at putting possibly a vegetation privacy screening in the corner of the stadium, just so any light that may be overspilling would be blocked by, say, 14 to 16-foot arborvitaes or some type of evergreen bushes, trees, that we can give a little more privacy to our neighbors. So the slide there, you see the actual stadium, the track and the field. Those colored lines are actually how the lights are pointing on the field surface. So when they installed those lights, they actually get a laser beam and they put little flags, marker flags on the field surface itself. And they point those lights with a laser onto those flags. And that's how, we developed the lighting pattern there, where the lights are all shining. So it's not, a best guess estimate of, oh, this light should shine here or there. It was very strategically thought out. The lights were placed, and again, I observed them with the laser pointing. So those lights go where they're supposed to go. So, after they were done installing them, they actually take foot candle readings of how much light is shining where in the field. So that slide there shows you the football field, which is the lower part of that. You see the football surface, the two end zones on the sides there. So they're the foot candle readings that are on the playing surface itself. They also did light readings along the neighbor's fence line there, along the backyard of the Fraser Road neighbors there. They also did the field out the walking path there by the neighbors' houses. And they took readings right along the path, right on the district property there. So you really can't see those numbers, but they're way less than anything closer to the field. Your recommended foot candles on the playing surface is that 50. And you can see by the house there, that's 0.15, 0.13. So the light spillage there is very minimal, and you can see it from those readings there. So, when we designed it, we took into consideration any light, any effect that it would have on our neighbors. And I think we did a good job of concentrating the most amount of light on the playing surface while not disturbing the neighbors as best we could. So I just wanted to, show everybody that a lot of thought went into that. We did do our best to stop any light spillage from coming over. And again, anybody that really has the big concerns, we're going to attempt possibly to put up these vegetation privacy screenings. Some of the neighbors, they like to watch the kids, the athletes play. So not everyone wanted, the field to be blocked. They actually want to watch the kids. They enjoy the events. So, but we did our due diligence when the lights were installed, and we'll keep addressing it the best we can. Some of the neighbors had some issues with noise as well. So we do have a sound system out there, obviously. So we've put a governor on it, if you say, to keep the noise levels down. So if anybody ever calls, has concerns, we try to address them immediately, do the best we can. We're very conscious of of our neighbors. We appreciate their support, and we're going to try and do everything we can for them.
So I just want to, Mr. Thorne, and just to make sure that this is, because it took me a minute to be able to interpret this chart. So for the
Okay.
benefit of the members of the board and anyone from the community who's paying attention. So this is the numbers vertically that start with 69 on the far left and go down that narrow column to 62.
Yep,
That is the end zone of the football field along Paper Mill Road.
that is correct.
And then the fence line readings that begin with 0.45 horizontally and go all the way across to 0.49, that is the fence line along Fraser Road behind the neighbors' houses that live on Fraser Road. We've had some inquiry from members of the community, and that's why I see a house there in that corner of the stadium where we had lost an evergreen or two that were providing some screening with regard to the lighting spray. You know, how does the light impact their backyards? And so this foot candle level shares with you that the majority of the lighting is occurring on the field itself. There is slight light along the fence line, and you can see the difference in a reading of roughly 0.5 versus a reading of an average reading of 52. That is a significant difference in the strength of the lighting along the fence line. And then it's even lower in that corner. Nonetheless, we want to be good neighbors. So our goal here is in that corner to plant, right now we're looking at the exact number, Mr. Thorne, but I think we were looking at somewhere around 6 or 7 good size evergreens to try to help with some concerns we've had from one neighbor in particular. And Mr. Needleman, I know you've been trying to ask a question, so.
Yeah, no, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I just, Dr. Yannicone, in connection with your explanation, thank you for that. What is I feel silly asking this, but what is a foot candle? Just so I can answer the question I know I'm going to get asked.
Yeah, it's a unit of measurement for light, actually. It's the, I don't know if they consider the color rendering index into that. That's the shade of light. But yeah, that's how it's measured. It's in foot candles.
So is it the higher the number of foot candle, the more light there is?
Correct. Yep. The brighter is. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Very good. So these next slides actually show you that one end zone and some of the neighbors' houses there. The close-up picture there is one house of concern. So right at that fence line, that 4-foot black match fence line is where we're proposing to put these 14 to 16 foot evergreens there. So the next slide is just a close-up of that area. That's an existing white pine. The picture to the left of the existing white pine, there was another one that was similar size. And it really, shaded the backyards of that area. Unfortunately, it died and we had to take it down. So we're looking at possibly planting, these evergreens in this area.
Have you let them know that you were thinking about planting them?
We have.
Okay.
Dr. Yannicone has been in correspondence with them quite regularly about all these issues.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
Ms. Slupinski, there's 2 concerns that the neighbors have. One is the ambient light, which, as you can see, we've done some measurement and we feel like we could probably ameliorate the light by planting these trees. And they are appreciative of the effort. It's not all that they would like. They also asked about the noise level, in particular in the after school hours when teams are getting ready, warming up for a game, and they play music, sort of what kids would call psych music, they want to get themselves riled up and ready to go. So for probably 10 to 15 minutes before a game, they're playing music. The music obviously doesn't play during the contests. And so Mr. Thorne has placed a lock on the volume level so that it's at an appropriate volume level. There is no ordinance for school districts with regard to volume level, but we are trying to maintain the volume level that is expected typically, which I think Mr. Thorne is somewhere in the 50s. Am I correct? For
Yeah,
Destiny?
actually a little lower than that. You know, again, we play music, we announce on the microphone, and go out on the field and see what's acceptable. So when we go over to the neighbor's defense line and make sure it's not too loud. So
Noise was the second, light was the first, and then the third is just the frequency of usage. And so we did an analysis. Mr. Ferraro, our athletic director, did an analysis of the usage of the stadium in 2018-19 prior to the pandemic and prior to construction, right towards the end of construction, actually, relative to this year. What has our usage been? And there is absolutely no doubt that we have increased rental usage of the stadium. We haven't increased our own team's usage. We're actually running roughly the same number of contests and practices. And our practices generally end around dinner hour, roughly around 6:30. But we have two community organizations, Springfield Township Soccer and Springfield Township Lacrosse, who have rented pretty much every other evening that we do not have night contests for the entire school year. So we have probably close to, Mr. Thorne, you're going to have to help me out here. I think we have over 120 more evenings of stadium usage than we did pre-pandemic.
yes.
And that usage is not contest, it is predominantly practices, anywhere from a half a dozen students on a team to, it could be several hundred children on a weekend in the middle of the day as members of those community groups. And so we had a previous conversation about the relative merits of allowing those community groups to have access to the stadium versus locking them out of evenings or limiting the number of evenings. And in conversation, we felt that it was appropriate that we try to support the children of the community in supporting the rental of the stadium. So this last slide that Mr. Thorne prepared is just the signage that's up at the stadium and on our website, where we've tried to clarify when we have community use, and every other time we can guarantee it's being used either by the district or by community groups. That said, it's a source of concern and some consternation to at least one of our neighbors because of the frequency of the usage.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Yannicone. And you can see there posted, it's basically from February all the way through July 31st. So we close for graduation, obviously, to get ready for that. But they're the hours posted, mornings and evenings. And we're not turning the lights on any of the mornings. We've adjusted that time frame to have the security guard to open up everything where we don't have to turn the lights on in the morning times. So I think that the neighbors were very appreciative of that. But even these times, in the afternoons, the evenings, we're not turning the lights on. So public access, there's no lights because of the time adjustments. Again, it's predominantly, I think the most usage you're seeing is from the outside, from the community. So that's it. That's the end of the agenda. Does anybody have any questions, concerns?
Nothing, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Thorne. We appreciate the comprehensive overview. And I'm sorry to hear that we're still struggling with our neighbors, but I'm glad to hear that we're trying to work out some compromises and supporting our students too. So
yes, there is existing a 2002 agreement with regard to the number of contests that we would have on the stadium. We are meeting the terms of that agreement, but there is no doubt that the stadium usage has increased as we've upgraded the stadium, and the community would like to use it. And because the district uses the stadium so much during the school year, the only available time for community groups to have access is in the evenings and on weekends.
Right. Right.
And so
I
we continue to do our best to be as supportive as we can to our neighbors.
Yeah, I remember discussing the agreement and I'm just forgetting if we are looking to renew or reestablish the parameters for that agreement. I can't remember if we talked about that at all.
I don't believe we have. If the board would like to, we could certainly start that discussion. It is a 20-year-old agreement.
Yep.
But we have had it reviewed by our solicitor, who believes that it still is applicable. So there doesn't
Okay.
appear to be, from the district's perspective, an urgency to make any adjustments to that agreement.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
But I can share, if you'd like, I can share the agreement, the actual text of the agreement with the board if you'd like to review it.
I think we did review at, I don't know if it was the last property meeting or the one before, because I know we had some community members attend that
Yes.
to discuss that.
I
So,
think it was
but
the
if you want to
last-
resend, that's fine. That would be great.
Okay, sure. If you'd like to review it again, we send it along to you, and can also send you the comments from our solicitor.
Could
We
you
do-
also
Great,
send that
thanks.
last slide with the posted usage too?
Absolutely.
I'd like to compare that to the agreement.
Would you like us to share all of the slides with you?
Sure.
We can just send you the PowerPoint. And so, on that last slide, you see dates of usage from February until May. So there will be a new posting for the fall semester, because the fall athletic season has different hours and obligations for our teams than the spring. And so what you're going to look at is spring and summer. And then there'll be an updated sign in fall, for fall and winter. Okay.
On that same topic, hey, it's Jeff. On the same topic, one of the things that Mr. Needleman and I have talked about with Dr. Yannicone is that the usage of that field truly is the most objective indicator of the need of our community to have fields of play for those sports clubs. I think that's a really important consideration for us in terms of being a good neighbor, not just to Fraser Road, but to the entire Springfield community. And having spoken to representatives from some of those organizations, I mean, it is an absolute need to have more sports fields in Springfield Township. And in many cases, there's practices happening outside of our township. So to the extent that we've been able to provide that as a service, I feel really good about that. It's also a revenue driver that allows us to offset some costs within the district as well.
Understood. And the only other inquiry we have had, for your reference, is there are a few members of the community who have contacted us periodically about open access to the stadium, in particular to the rubberized track. And the reason for that is they would prefer to walk on that track than the middle school track, because as we've already discussed, the middle school track is warm. And so we do think that by the end of next summer, it'll be another advantage for the community who is looking to either train or walk on a more comfortable surface, that once we rubberize that middle school track, there will be a second option for the community. That'll be more to their expectations as far as the quality of the surface. And if we upgrade those middle school fields, it will also provide an increased accessibility for community groups to use those fields. And the rental fees that Mr. Bedard just mentioned are critical, because that where our maintenance team is maintaining those fields, not only for our school events, but also for community, because the wear and tear is, it's elevated, right? It's exacerbated by increased usage. And we do hope that the 3 fields at Church Road will really help the community as well, because we have a number of softball leagues and adult leagues and such that use those fields.
I have a question. Is there currently a time frame for usage at the middle school track for the community? I know we have our signage there at the high school, but what about the track at the middle school? Is there any restriction for community time?
It's a great question, Dr. Etland. The only restriction for the community that we request is that when our students are using the fields for health and physical education classes or for athletic practices, that the community does not use the same space. Not everyone observes and abides by that, but most people are respectful of the fact that we're in the midst of a football practice or a lacrosse practice, and that is for the safety of the community as well as the safety of our students. A flying lacrosse ball could cause significant injury to a community member if they were walking the track and we had practice in the center field.
Well, on that same vein, since we are now looking toward upgrading our signage, would it be helpful to the community to have a signage at the middle school for track or field usage for the community as well?
We can certainly do that, Mr. Thorne. Absolutely. We can look
There
into that.
currently are signs up saying
Okay.
the track is open to the public, other than when there's, school activity going on out there,
Okay. Okay.
that it is available.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. And, in the efforts of being good neighbors to the community, I'll just also mention to the committee members here that in June, at the end of June, we have provided a permit to the Springfield Township Rotary to bring the fair back, the carnival back. That was so popular before the pandemic and was a nice fundraiser for the Rotary. They are moving from the high school campus, where they have traditionally used high school parking lots, because the reconfiguration of the lots doesn't afford the same space for the rides. And so we're going to allow them to use our middle school fields at the end of June. That will cause some wear and tear after 4 or 5 days of carnival rides. Yes, just as little, Mr. Needleman, yes. And so we'll upgrade those fields as far as seed and whatever other repairs are needed before the start of the new school year.
That's
Did
exciting.
you want to? Yeah, it is exciting to have the
It is
carnival.
exciting. Can we also bring back the food truck fundraiser? I forget who did that one, but I love that one.
We certainly love a food truck, not a problem. I know that there's going to be food trucks at the Rotary Carnival. We've talked about, they're going to use the side lot where the teachers park, and they're going to use the lot closest to the tennis courts for, food and other kinds of carnival games. But the rides themselves will be right along Paper Mill Road, which, as I pointed out to them, is a great marketing tool, because people will see the carnival from 309 and be able to take the off ramp to come and spend a little money on behalf of the Rotary.
So, well, the food truck's there. I'll be there supporting Rotary.
Yes.
I have a question, comment, and a request. If I could put all of those out there. I'll start with a comment. And I loved in the beginning of the presentation the consistency of treating our campus as one campus. And I think, as a design principle for how we're thinking about not just branding elements, but like the quality level of the facilities. We've invested so much, obviously, in the elementary, in what will become the fields at the old Enfield, the high school. It's really exciting to see the middle school get back to standard, if you will. But I really love the thoughtful approach. So I appreciate all of that work and support all the exploration that we're doing. That's the comment. Question is, just for clarity, all of the funding for these larger scale capital projects are actually held in capital reserve and are part of our long-term capital investment strategy, correct? So there's no impact to the annual operating budget that we need to be concerned about as we think about, the votes that are going to be in the months ahead to finalize our operating budget. Is that correct?
I'm going to ask Ms. Green to answer that more thoroughly for you. We talked about this just the other day.
Sure. Yes. The majority of these projects, the athletic field project is actually still being funded by the bond that was taken for not only the new Enfield, but for this project as well. And yes, the other projects that Mr. Thorne brings forward that we talk about, summer projects, the majority of those that are eligible for capital reserve come out of capital reserve. There are some smaller items that I am blending into the operating budget. There's some of the signage that doesn't have the useful life that would make sense coming out of a capital reserve fund, would be an annual cost that would make more sense on the useful life. But it's very small, but the large scale numbers that you're going to see, and you'll see them because things will start to come and be put in front of the board for approval as we talk about these projects over some of the future meetings that we're having, with the security upgrades, with some of the other projects that Mr. Thorne has talked about and presented to the committee. So yes, they will be funded. The majority of them will be funded through capital reserve and will not have an impact on the vote that's happening with our annual operating budget.
Super helpful. Thank you. Then the request that I have, and I would love if there's any comments from the other board members. We didn't talk about this at all ahead of time, but I've had a growing number of comments from community members around whether or not we've investigated the use of electric buses as we think about continuing to upgrade our bus fleet. And my request would be, I want to make sure that we have looked into the cost benefit. I recognize there's likely significant requirements to create some infrastructure for electric bus fleet. And we have lots of buses that have a long life ahead of them. But I'm aware that there are some new government grants and some vendors that are providing options to school districts that would allow more flexibility as you think about turning over a bus fleet. So I would love any comments, maybe from Mr. Thorne on whether or not we've investigated this in the past. And my request would be, do some research on what it would take to think about a more sustainable bus fleet moving forward.
Well, I can speak just because I've been here a while, that the district, I don't think ever investigated electric buses to this point. I think I would let Ms. Green speak to that. She is in regular contact with Mr. Bray at the Transportation Department. So real quick, since you brought up the Transportation Department, we are obviously doing the roof down there, some of the structural improvements. We are still researching the possibility of another site in the future for that. So it's good that you brought up the electric buses. They'll obviously be charging stations. So that's something that we'll definitely consider as we research a possibility of a new transportation site.
Yep. So just to piggyback on Mr. Thorne's comments about the buses and to address Mr. Bedard's questions, we've had ongoing discussions on multiple levels about transportation. It comes up when we talk about purchasing buses. We've talked about a couple of times that there's been a conversation or a document that was presented before about outsourcing versus in-house. And then there's the overall conversation that happened at property committee about the transportation depot and the need for some upgrades or the possibility of looking at another site to house it properly. So I basically think that is a comprehensive collective conversation that ties in with the possibility of electric buses. Mr. Bray and I actually at the next finance committee meeting, we will be discussing purchasing of buses and upgrading our fleet. And that's going to tie nicely into another discussion we'll have with at a property committee meeting with the transportation depot. So again, it's a comprehensive, collective, ongoing conversation. Obviously, if we did explore the possibility of electric buses, we would most definitely need to find another depot for our transportation, and to hold our fleet, because obviously we would need charging stations, all that good stuff. So I think it comes hand in hand with that conversation to kind of figure that out and explore that opportunity. So we're most definitely on that track.
Awesome. I actually think in a lot of ways it would help if we were very serious about that as an option. It would help develop community support for the investment in a new depot as well, because that's going to be a significant investment. And if we were doing that with a long-term vision for reflecting the values of our community as well, which I think would be supportive of more sustainable sources of energy for our buses, right? So I think let's definitely make that part of the long-term discussion associated with the depot. And then I would love to look at additional options or vendors that could help us even get there faster.
Mr. Bedard, can I piggyback on your comment, which I think is really well stated. The only thing I wanted to add is, as we look at this, one of the things I think would be a really good idea, particularly as relates to Mr. Bedard's comment about community input and community participation, is whether any of those chargers that would have to be installed could be used for a fee or not by the community. I'm just thinking of somebody I talked to yesterday who drives an electric car, who said he missed his exit and got stuck looking for somewhere to charge the car because he needed to get somewhere else. So I just think it'd be really helpful if we could include that as well.
Most definitely.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for the guidance. We do have one community member for public comment, and I do see a hand raised. So, Mr. Coughlin, if you could promote Mrs. Reeves so she can ask her question.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Quick question, Mr. Thorne, I don't know, and perhaps I've missed this and you've had other meetings regarding this, but has the situation of the flooding on Paper Mill Road onto the field been rectified at this juncture?
Not necessarily. We are working with the township on, what's causing the flooding, how can we stop it and everything, but no actual, I would say, huge extensive capital project has been, brought forth just yet. The township did go out and clean the inlets, the stormwater inlets along Paper Mill Road. We've been following up with investigation on the stadium site as well, but no definitive large project to solve a stormwater issue has been brought forth yet.
Because I spoke to the Board of Commissioners about the situation and understanding that Paper Mill Road is a state road. So there was sort of very little the township could do per se. And, I wanted more information from the solicitor, of course, about that. And I was actually referred to the senator, local Senator Haywood, and perhaps State Representative Nelson to get involved in that situation to sort of move that process further along. You've done an awful nice job with the facilities and everything looks great, and the signage and, one continuous look for the campuses. And I think that may be a sort of a pain point for facilities, I would assume. And, if there's anything we can do to help as a community to reach out and maybe move that conversation along, that's not just another thing you have to address, quite frankly.
Well, thank you for the support. Yeah. PennDOT has been involved. They send their representative out, they take a look, and we have conversations, but again, no project has been put forth just yet.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Thorne.
Welcome.
Ms. Reeves, I think your suggestion on involving some of our local politicians is a great one. So, Mr. Thorne, have we talked with Representative Nelson or Senator Haywood?
I have not personally, but I certainly can research that and see where we can get. Absolutely.
I think
The
it would
most
be
recent interaction with Representative Nelson, Mr. Bedard, you may remember, is the grant we've applied for through his office or with his support for half the cost of the Church Road project, approximately $2 million. We haven't received word on that, but he was instrumental in helping us to get that moving forward. He came out and visited the site prior to demolition. And I have in a related note, in addition to the flooding, my pet peeve is the overgrowth along Route 309 behind the middle school softball fields, which we are not permitted to address because it is not our property. So Mr. Thorne and I have discussed in the past the fact that we cannot handle that in the way that I would like us to handle it, which is to raise it.
Yeah.
And just get all those weeds out of it.
It might be a good idea for us as property committee and through you, Mr. Thorne, to actually put a list of things that we would love help with and actually just have a sit down partnership with Senator Haywood and Representative Nelson. I'd love to participate in that. I think it's a great suggestion from Mr. Reeves.
That's great. Yeah. I know, also too, with PennDOT, being so involved. The middle school wanted to do a nice mural project at the tunnel entrance on the middle school side. But all the structure is PennDOT owned. So we did reach out and discussed it, and they said they would come and look at it and everything. So yeah, hopefully with the help of the representatives, possibly we can have a meeting with PennDOT in the future and discuss all these issues.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I don't know that we have any other participants or hands raised. And so I think if the board doesn't have any other questions, we can conclude the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Yeah, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you for
all.
your support.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.